Hey, this is Daniel here, and welcome back to the Need to Know channel. And today, I wanted to touch upon the important subject of neurological disorders, as hundreds of millions of people worldwide are affected by a neurological disorder, whether they realize it or not. Many of which can lead to death, whether it be by a stroke or suicide. But despite it being a serious concern, I'll also be mentioning many positive traits associated with being neurodiverse along the way as we go. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it.
There are many different types of neurological disorders. While some are relatively minor and temporary, others are far more serious and require ongoing or emergency treatment. Mental illness in general can be caused by a variety of both genetic and environmental factors. Now, this is very important for defining whether it is a psychopath or a sociopath you are dealing with, because depending on what type of mental disorder the person has, whether it comes about naturally through genetics or environmentally with parenting, relationships, media exposure, or just plain bad luck, then that will help to better narrow down and diagnose which category the mental illness falls under, psychopath or sociopath. And from there, it becomes somewhat more clear what kind of treatment is appropriate and what kind of treatment is a waste of time, depending on the mental illness. If the disorder is genetic, it could be that the person needs dietary changes, medication, certain exercise routines, or yoga. Or if it's social, it could be they need a better social circle to find a life purpose that they can strive towards, or just therapy. You get the idea.
Now, before we move on to describing specific developmental disorders, I wanted to make one thing clear about psychopaths and sociopaths in general. Now, in society, these terms are taught to us in a very negative light, as though these people only bring about bad karma to everyone else. Now, I'm not denying that some of these people don't commit bad acts. Some of them certainly do. But you need to look at the situation of mental illness from a more holistic point of view. It won't always pan out that these people crave committing bad acts or violence on any level whatsoever. It's just the mere reality that because of the way these people's brains function, these people have a hard time grappling with many of the facets of day-to-day life in a society that is tailor-made for the average person, not neurodiverse people. Psychopath simply means different brain chemistry, while sociopath simply means tougher upbringing or badly influenced. So if you're just an average person watching this video, you need to wake up and realize that the average psychopath or sociopath is probably no more of a criminal than you are. I mean, how many parking tickets or speeding tickets have you gotten over the course of your life? Bloody hell.
All these people, despite having very different mindsets, live the same day-to-day life experience as anyone else. We all have dickheads in our lives. We all put up with traffic. We all hate Donald Trump. We all have goals in life that we aspire towards. And just bear in mind that just because a person cannot feel empathy doesn't mean that these people want to harm others, so quit judging them. And even if some of these people do want to harm others, guess what? There's ways we can help these people to ensure that this doesn't continue happening. Okay, now let's move on to the next portion of the video. So the first one on my list is autism spectrum disorder, which is characterized by persistent defects in social interaction and communication in multiple important areas of life, as well as restricted and repetitive behaviors. The DSM specifies that symptoms of autism spectrum disorder must be present during the early developmental period and that these symptoms must cause significant disruption in important areas of life, especially at work and social life. Let me explain from my personal experience about why we function on a basis of repetitive behaviors. It's due to the fact that we operate on an entirely different wavelength of understanding and perception than everyone else. Therefore, we learn things in a different way and at a slower pace, but once we pick up that new ability, it's then locked in our minds forever and we don't ever forget it. And from there, this is where we do our jobs extremely well. And because we can't understand or follow orders from others, patterns and routines become our safe haven as to how we survive in the workplace. And we make that work well for us, But then, there are times where people get frustrated as to why we struggle to function as part of a team. Well, it's simply because we structure our routines based on what we understand, and anything that deviates from that, it freaks us out, because it's a piece of the puzzle that we don't understand fits. Now, when it comes to the autism spectrum, what's crucial to understand is that at the end of the day, every person is on the spectrum. It's what it means to be human, and your average person is right dead in the middle. This is what is labelled normal. This is how we structure our society. And I know what you're thinking, but it makes zero sense to diagnose every person as being autistic. And you'd be dead right. That would make absolutely no sense whatsoever. But I'm just saying it how it is. We're all on the spectrum. And then you have low and high functioning autism. Now this is what most people would define as autistic in the classical stereotypical sense of the word. We will start by defining low functioning autism, or level 3. 1988 was the year the movie The Rain Man was released in theatres, and for the first time ever, people got a taste of what autism looks like. But given the lack of information at the time, little did people know that wasn't an accurate representation of what autism as a whole is like, and people were so deceived into believing that all autistic people are special needs. But what Dustin Hoffman's character was playing in the movie, without him or anyone else being aware of it, is what is nowadays defined as low-functioning autism, which is a form of special needs, literally, similar enough to Down syndrome. Only Down syndrome might have a bit easier time socializing than low-functioning autism. People with this condition cannot socialize nor communicate, and they hate change. These people can be mute or have very few words to say and can barely complete the simplest day-to-day tasks like dressing themselves. While type 3s have no independence whatsoever, high-functioning autistic people, or level 1 people on the other hand, are so independent, so capable of looking after themselves. They love doing things on their own terms and hate being told what to do by others. These people have very strong language skills and are very intelligent, but the inability to socialize and communicate is still present, but to a lesser degree. These people can develop themselves, but certain features will never change. These people are known to be quite rigid and set in their ways and don't like being put in situations where they're forced to multitask or commune with other people against their will. But these people can and have given the world enormous value with their intelligence, brought new ideas, challenged social norms, and invented cool technology. But the ability to communicate and socialize at a basic level is not found in low or high functioning autistic people. That is only found in people in the center, which is what everybody else in society is good at. ADHD is characterized by a persistent pattern of hyperactivity and impulsivity and short attention span. Because they're overexcited or a lack of interest in certain things that they consider to be boring, they are certainly not the most conservative when it comes to keeping their room in tidy order. But once they find their passion in life, they go all out with 1000% effort. But funny enough, despite having an issue with attention deficit and are always the last person in the family and in the workplace to know what the hell's going on, they can also tap into an ability to hyperfocus on things they love and know absolutely everything about. These people make a lot of noise and can be quite rebellious at times, but not in a narcissistic way. But they will get pissed off when you start telling them what to do and how they ought to live their life. These are the sort of people that if you tell them a funny joke, they will remember it and continue laughing about it for decades to come. With the way that the education system runs based on IQ tests does a great disservice to ADHD people. It makes them look and feel unintelligent when that is not the case at all. And it is not until years after they leave school do they finally get to discover what their passion is and work towards it and excel at it. And one last thing I'll note about ADHD is that these people have an incredibly natural high tolerance to caffeine. If you're an average person, you probably require about 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day. These people need about 8 or 10 just so they can stay awake and function normally. Bipolar disorder is characterized by shifts in mood as well as energy and activity levels. These people experience shifts between elevated moods and periods of depression that change on an hourly, daily, or weekly basis. They can one day be highly productive, the next day lazy, One day they could be happy, the next suicidal. One person said that during a manic episode, the longest period of time she'd gone without any sleep was roughly 8 days, and she said she was on 3 different types of medication, one being a mood stabilizer, another being antidepressants, and another one being antipsychotic meds, all just so she can get decent sleep at night. During their manic episodes, these sorts of people engage in very dangerous and reckless behavior without acknowledging that these behaviors are reckless and dangerous. And coming down from one of these excitement manic states feels like a hard crash more so than it does a smooth downward fall. It's this overarching theme of what goes up must come down. And it's also way too common that these people with bipolar get misdiagnosed with some other mental disorder with similar symptoms and end up on the wrong medication that ends up making matters worse for them. So if you're the sort of person who suffers from bipolar type 1, the manic episodes tend to last a lot longer, and if you're bipolar 2, the opposite is the case when you're in the depression mood a lot longer. The chemical in the brain, serotonin, associated with long-term happiness, is found to be very deficient within the bipolar mind, thus only being able to experience dopamine and depression. Disruptive impulse control and conduct disorders are characterized by committing actions that violate the basic human rights of others, such as vandalism, domestic violence, and other actions that conflict with authority figures and social norms. The 3 main types of this are intermittent explosive disorder, which is characterized by brief outbursts of anger and violence that are out of proportion to the situation, like someone smashing a hole in the wall just because they can't find their car keys. Pyromania, people who love setting fires to pretty much anything to gain emotional arousal. Kleptomania, the inability to control one's impulse to take things that are not theirs and that they don't want or need and hold no monetary value whatsoever. Those with the condition experience escalating tension before committing theft and feel relieved afterwards. The biggest thing that the criminal justice system must acknowledge is that these people don't learn from punishment, even if it's what they deserve. We must realize that these people are just acting from childhood trauma because growing up they were denied things, they were bullied, or they never got to see fireworks as a kid. If we don't help these people express themselves in a non-dysfunctional way and get them to realize that acting out on their impulses won't satisfy them in the long term, if these measures are not put in place to help reintegrate them into society, then we're just wasting taxpayer money housing them in prison if it doesn't change them for the better. If you want to learn more about these types of people, go on YouTube and look up Spiral Dynamics Stage Red by a YouTube channel called actualize.org. Feeding and eating disorders. Now, if you're a little bit squeamish, you might want to skip over this portion of the video. Anorexia is one condition guaranteed to make you feel very sick, possibly die, and absolutely leave you feeling low and bitter about life. It is the worst possible way to go about compensating that you don't like your physical appearance. And for me personally, this is a bad rabbit hole I went down about 6 years ago, when I got into fitness and dieting. I thought it was so fucking cool that one could manipulate their physique through how many calories they ate. Not that that method actually works, but anyway. HIIT cardio, weightlifting, healthy eating, these are all very good habits. But if you're a student of media studies, you probably have a degree of awareness as to how Hollywood movies portrays the absolute perfect physique. Yes, there is a toxic element to the fitness lifestyle, as far as what we define as healthy, that will just leave you feeling down in the dumps, like what happened to me. Now, on the opposite side of the eating disorder spectrum, you have people who just gorge on food non-stop. Now, this is where we need to mention the elephant in the room, no pun intended. Now, the fat acceptance movement overall is a very positive thing for discouraging discrimination amongst diabetic people who do everything in their power to try and lose weight but just can't. I'm talking about the sort of people who turn fatness into an ego identity because they can't be bothered trying to break a terrible habit. And there seems to be a growing acceptance of this kind of behavior, of people who turn fatness into a lifestyle choice, and these people do give the fat acceptance movement a very bad reputation, and the only reason that they're doing it is just because they're deeply unconscious. Multiple personality disorder, or a dissociative identity disorder, as it's otherwise called, it's when a person develops multiple personalities with or without the person being aware of it. A person with such a weak sense of reality and can't distinguish what is true and what is false, who has multiple egos, is seriously not the sort of person who is meant to be pursuing nirvana by any means. There is nothing more disturbing than not being 100% grounded in any one particular sense of who you think you are, but instead having multiple egos that are in direct conflict with one another all the time. The disorder breaks down certain facets of your consciousness and alters your memories, perception, and fantasies in a twisted way to the point where you are completely deceived as to what is real and what is fiction with your life history and your daily interactions. And these people are also known to have out-of-body experiences as well. It's different from bipolar. They're not jumping between mania and depressed, they're jumping from one egoic sense of who they are to the next, all the time. Here are the outward signs that a person could be switching from one personality to the next at any given time. Muscle twitching, heavy blinking, change in vocabulary, lack of eye contact, memory loss, and change in posture. There is no clear sense as to how often they switch personalities. People will just switch due to either stress or bad memories. Now onto the last disorder on our list, schizophrenia. Like DID, it affects the way a person thinks, acts, and expresses one's emotions. This condition is associated with severe psychosis, which includes delusions and hallucinations. And unlike multiple personality disorder, where the person is switching personalities all the time, schizophrenia, you can lose all sense of reality entirely, which, on the positive side, makes it easier to have mystical awakenings, but I can't imagine any other aspect of their life being very easy at all.
Okay, so that was a lot of information we just unpacked. Now, it's worth mentioning that looking at the global statistics for pretty much all of these mental illnesses will not give you an accurate result, and that is because most of these cases go undiagnosed, and that is for two main reasons. The first reason being is that mental health care all around the world, even in developed countries, is well underfunded. And the second reason being is that global ignorance is so widespread that even the mentally ill people themselves don't know about their own disorder. It's not just that ordinary people are ignorant, it's that everybody is ignorant, including the mentally ill people themselves. Everybody is ignorant. But I reckon in the future that once the human race finally decides to put its money, resources, and a collective attitude in the right place, I reckon that the majority of these people can be helped. And just remember, don't underestimate the power of the neurodiverse mind. Because many of these people, despite all the challenges that they face, many of these people are very intelligent, and have brought about a lot of progress, and can and have in the past brought about massive change to the world for the better. They have invented cool technology and have challenged the common narratives of thinking, and brought massive value to the world. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this was a long video. I hope you all gained some fresh insight. I'm Daniel. I'm signing off.